bit of range, but actually, if they commit to the Ezreal Karma, this is a 2v2 who can harass from a distance and cause problems for Aphelios just by taking priority against him. We'll see if they look to commit to that or end up going for something else. They are going to go for that Karma. It could also be flexed. On 11-14, she did get a little bit of a nerf to a base AD, so she has actually dropped a bit in priority, but still definitely an option V5 could look to pursue. And Suiting, I think you can just take the Lee Sin here. SofM was really good on it. You can still flex it to mid if you really want. You can still flex to top and put the Gwen jungle. I doubt that will happen, but it keeps those options alive.
I would actually like to see them pick up the Thresh here, because I feel like a V5 are just banning away supports now, and yep, they're going to opt in the last second to go towards the Thresh. They get that guaranteed 100% positive bot lane experience for the Aphelios, and now you can start to ban away certain support champions that you feel like would mess with this Aphelios Thresh combination. You can get rid of the Nautilus, you can get rid of the Leona, and basically hard force Uniboy to taking this Karma or to taking a bad matchup in the bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely put them in that position. Honestly, at this point, I think it's going to be pretty difficult to apply that pressure. Also, dive threats in this game. Thresh Aphelios is really good at dealing with them. Gwen's obviously going to run rampant in the backline of V5. So already, I feel like Suning are in a pretty good spot so far in this draft. For V5, I like the TF ban away from Angel. Obviously, can apply a lot of map pressure. I think the Lee Sin from SofM is also something you can look towards if you just want to limit that early pressure that he could apply in this game.
Yeah, I would be surprised to see V5 not ban the Lee Sin, considering how far the priority it has gone down. And we do see the Kennen being banned away here by Suning, so they're recognizing on their end that V5 in dire need of a good AP threat. If you go with the Karma mid, it is a similar situation to last game, but reverse. You have a lot of AD, not a huge amount of AP, so this side around, Suning just making sure that they can cover up all their bases, and now V5 left with a decision to make, and they are going to go towards the mid lane. So honestly, right now, Suning, you lock in the Lee Sin. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I think you can take a pick like that, or you can look in a different direction and take, you know, we've seen stuff like the Olaf picking his Xin Zhao just because of the early contest, but they're just going to commit to the Lee Sin. SofM had it. I mean, I'm going to say a free game in game one, but he's had pretty strong performances all around. And now for V5, they are going to take the Viego, which I expect to see top. You can still put it mid, but I expect to see it there. And they're actually going to go for the Braum in the bot lane, putting that Karma mid. So Karma and Xin Zhao is a pretty strong combo in the 2v2. Obviously, support that pick, give PZX a lot of pressure. The bot lane of Ezreal Braum is very safe, but can't really do too much to pressure the Aphelios. Really, and that's kind of the limitation I'm seeing. We do see that Ryze in the mid lane. Angel's pretty confident he'll just have a fairly chill lane where you can just find priority. You have that route set up for the Lee Sin. So, I mean, I think Suning still pretty comfortable with their composition. I think they've got a lot of power. I think things like the Aphelios for Huanfeng, the Gwen for Bin, SofM and the Lee Sin, I'm very confident they can execute on those camps. But V5, you know, that mid jungle is their point of strength. So I'd like to see PZX with Smite and see what he can do with Uniboy this game, because I think bot lane is going to be in a rough spot. Top lane, Aliez should be okay, but Bin is an absolute monster on the Gwen, so that is one of my potential concerns.
Potential concerns, but a hell of a lot of scaling there for Suning. They get to the 3-item point, they are going to have so much damage to tear through the side of V5. And for V5, they're banking on the early game priority. They're banking on this Karma Xin Zhao to pop off and be able to rotate around the map. And that should be a pretty decent idea for them if they can get it going. That's a big old if. As Suning have shown in the past, they are very good at just mitigating a lot of that pressure and mitigating a lot of that perceived power from the side of anyone who picks an early game composition. And now we'll see if they're able to finish the job. Like we said, SofM and Suning have a job to do. They have to get themselves a 2-0. That is what they came here to do, and they're halfway done. Just one more game to finish it off.
Yep, and should be going into this one confident. I think overall this game, it's really going to come down to sort of if they can find a lead for V5, that mid jungle, that there's life. If they don't, I'm going to be a bit concerned overall how this one develops. So that's mainly the focus I'm sort of going to look on, and how they play around that. I also feel like I'd like to see a bit of proactivity in terms of tracking the enemy jungler, invading, challenging camps. I think that's something... Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're welling up. It's a very emotional time.
It's very stressful, yeah. Very. Oh, but he's got the smite, so, you know, already in a good spot. But as I was saying, I'd like to see, you know, if you have this Karma Xin Zhao, look to do things like invade on the enemy Raptors, right? Challenge them, get the spawn timer, look to play around that. Look to use that pressure, and if you can shut down Angel, if you can shut down SofM, you can lean that pressure outwards and find an advantage for Aliez and Viego. You can find an advantage for your bot lane and try and snowball the game in that sense.
Yeah, I actually really like this adaptation in the rune choice here from On. He's gone with the Guardian rather than the Aftershock. Generally speaking, it just, you would see the Aftershock just to give him a bit of extra tankiness if he goes in, but I like this knowing that there's going to be a lot of poke coming out from Kepler and from Reheal, so I think it's just a nice little movement here from away from that kind of standard style.
I think you've seen a lot of development with Thresh, because there's kind of been like, the old thing was to max the hook first and have Aftershock. There's been this playstyle where you actually max Lantern first and go Guardian, and that was actually a big problem. They've nerfed it quite a bit just because it was so overbearing, and right now it's kind of at a point where it's still strong to do so. It's just not as strong as it was, but there's definitely scenarios like this where you're not really going to find much kill pressure in this bot lane 2v2, and the main focus is just keeping Aphelios alive, so the Guardian definitely really valuable in that regard.
See how that bot lane does develop. It is going to be Huanfeng and On who have themselves the advantage and the push. They will hit level 2 first, but like we said, very little kill pressure really against a Braum Ezreal. And now Uniboy using that priority with the mantra Qs, pushing in, pushing out to his bot lane, making sure he has vision of the bot side. And now he can lean towards that end and say, look, I know where SofM isn't, which in itself is information.
Yeah, and you should be able to spot him out because obviously on the Scuttle Crab clear when he paths down towards there, because you know both junglers on opposite sides, it's very sort of pretty obvious where they're going to end up in terms of pathing, and just that extra bit of information pretty valuable, and it means that we can have situations like this where Suning feel confident to play up when they have the information. Although I think they really want to crash this wave and sort of back away, because obviously jungler not on their side of the map. They want to sort of resolve this issue as soon as possible.
Yeah, you just sort of try and push it up, get as much damage down. It's very difficult for an Ezreal to really do anything at level 2. Kind of just waiting to see if he can last hit underneath the tower, not really in a position to push it back as such, and that is something that you do have to deal with when you pick an Ezreal. Ezreal is not your traditional AD carry that can melt the waves away. It is someone who is very reliant on his poke to start off team fights, to put a priority carry down, and that is what you have to take the risk for. And speaking of risk, Bing gonna get jumped on here. There's no flash here for Bin, and he's gonna be pretty much dead to rights. They're gonna give that one up to PZX, so a much better start for the V5 jungler.
Yeah, it's actually a really strong early gank to shut down Bin. The wave was in a pretty bad spot for him. He will just be able to TP back in on this one if he wants to. But actually, SofM trying to invade here, and V5's bot lane come and defend. So I like to see this. It kind of wards them away. It means that the dive potential isn't coming in. There still is a CS lead for Suning, but SofM not really going to be able to do anything to act on it.
And that's the big thing as well. You're just defending camps. You're making sure that the Lee Sin isn't going to gain anything from it. As we can see, Kepler going very aggressive here and popping out with his arcane shift, making sure he got something here. And this might be a bit dangerous now for the Suning bot side. PZX, he's got 1 kill. Maybe he's looking for more of the heal. Immediately comes out, flash for flash on the supports. Flash in there, and On has nowhere to go. The concussive blows is good enough to keep him locked in place. Kepler gets a kill, and V5, they're getting their early game back.
Yeah, they're doing a pretty good job here, and this is kind of the typical V5 we've seen, where they have some strength in the early game, and it's normally later on where things start to struggle. I think Suning, you know, they managed to push the wave in. It started to bounce back. You know that your jungler's just left in SofM. You know that PZX is going to be coming to the bot side. They should have backed off there. They should have played it safer. There's no reason to step that far up, especially on. Like, this is the thing, is that you can have Huanfeng just walk forwards and play Lantern. There's actually no way to deny the Lantern play from V5, because Xin Zhao needs to get on you and then knock you up with 3 autos, right? Reheal needs to proc the stun, which takes, you know, several autos to do. So if you're playing Lantern, there's just not much they can do to stop you from kind of keeping your AD carry safe. And I think that would have avoided that gank quite capably. So it's you know, mistakes from Suning, but also V5 doing a good job to punish it. And speaking of punishing, Aliez is having a great time in this top lane matchup.
Really is. You can see they're going toe-to-toe, both top laners at level 5, but neither committing their ignite, and they were very much waiting to see if they could get that advantage. It is going to force Bin to use his TP now to get back up into this top side. As Reheal is spotted out on that pink ward with all the information, though. They imagine with Reheal being topside, that probably means PZX is as well. So, SofM starting off the Dragon, going to be able to get that objective nice and early.
Yeah, gets the priority on that. Now PZX has a potential option to look towards the top lane again if he wants. He has been playing around his solo laners more so, having the strength there. And I think it's the right call on this Xin Zhao. Obviously, you have this a pretty easy lane to gank in the Gwen with no flash available. And the big thing with the Gwen is like the limiting factors. If you're playing a ranged champion, the W is really effective, but you don't really have that problem with Xin Zhao. And now we're seeing that pairing. You know, the Karma and Xin Zhao moving together. This is what we're looking for in this game. If you're drafting this duo, this is what you should be doing. They aren't really able to find too much, but we'll just apply that pressure. Whereas on the bot lane, Wave is pushing into Suning, and you can see they're positioned to kind of zone Kepler away.
Oh, they're going to try and jump it onto Angel. The Wind Become Lightning has not been used just yet. The Flash will be used and burned by Angel. And this is really good early game. And like you said, this is pretty much bog standard for what we expect from V5 in the split this year. Their early game has been fantastic. They make proactive plays. They get themselves out onto the map to be a nuisance to anyone they go against. It's when we hit about 15 to 20 minutes where everything does seem to fall apart. So for V5, I would love to see them try and move this momentum further and further and try and get themselves pushed into a much stronger position.
Yeah, I want to see you making use of the advantages you have and trying to translate them. Now, they are fishing for something bot lane, but that ward will spot out. They're still looking though, but the Lantern should just easily get Huanfeng away. And that's kind of the power of this Thresh Aphelios, but also just the fact that there isn't much to stop it. At level 6, Reheal gets his ultimate. That can obviously interrupt the Lantern. Obviously, if PZX got in range, you can actually use his ultimate to interrupt it. But until that point, it's very difficult to target Huanfeng. Ong is the easier target, but he's kind of been playing his position a little bit more safe just to respect that.
Yeah, took the rap on the knuckles and basically said, look, okay, I get it. I shouldn't have been that far up. I was punished. I'll take that death on my own. And now backs himself up. Now recognizing that Kepler is probably by himself right now, not really in a position to go aggressive. They can't get the reset for the support. And they're going to start roaming themselves up towards this top side because this is where the Rift Herald shall be started by V5.
Yeah, but the thing is, V5 have that priority in the top lane, so they're able to quickly start this one off. SofM is going to be here to respond, but I'm not sure you can really do anything in time because the rest of V5 are collapsing now. But I think SofM just to back away. The rotation from on just a lot slower than Reheal, honestly. But critically, it was the fact that if you want to contest that Herald as Suning, you need to be rotating fast. It can't be at the same time because you don't have that priority in the top lane. You need to be there sooner as a result.
And I love the respect that V5 gave as well. They backed out of the pit as soon as they recognized someone's around. They didn't have full information of where the mid support were, so they give themselves an opportunity as SofM might be in a little bit of trouble. They're going to force the kill or the kick out of him, and they can jump straight in onto this bot side, but it is a trade of 1-for-1 now. V5 with Reheal and PZX. Uniboy could get the speed up and the shields, but they don't feel 100% confident going for it. But still, good trade back for V5.
I mean, V5 can be happy. I was kind of worried about that bot lane, the lack of priority. I was concerned about how this top lane matchup would go just because it's been so strong on the Gwen, but the matchup is fine, and Aliez has been proving that. Bot lane, Kepler's gotten 2 kills, so even though he's down a bit in farm, he's in a comfortable spot. And V5 have had a decent early game. I think they can be happy. They have the Herald to throw down as well and to sort of snowball things. I mean, we said, you know, I'm sorry to bring it up again. I really do apologize, Penguin. We said game 1 was kind of rock bottom. This is not even just like an upgrade from that. This is actually a decent start all around.
Yeah, it really is. And SofM, he did feel like he was forced to use his kick there to make sure that they could not get him out of that realm warp. And that meant that when he goes for this kill onto Ezreal, it just doesn't really have the same level of burst.
Yeah, it also felt kind of forced. You know, you don't have a wave to play around with. It meant you saw Angel having to tank those tower hits at the start, taking a lot of damage. It wasn't really set up well. It kind of just felt spur of the moment. They were looking for a pick in the jungle, realized V5 had too many members, so they couldn't find it, and then they try and rotate down just to find an opportunity on a Kepler, but the setup wasn't really there, and as a result, they get punished for it.
I get punished, and now there's still only about a 500 gold lead in favor of V5. Dragon did go in favor of Suning as the next one spawning in just under 40 seconds. Suning now just happy to keep Huanfeng on this bot side. He's not really in any danger or threat as of right now. On is always going to be by his side, and if he's not, that's when we can see those Aphelios picks really backfire on teams. And now, again, like I mentioned, it's just very, very difficult for a team with an Ezreal to push out bot wave. He's just not your traditional carry that can create and push back the waves.
Yeah, but he is farming fairly well. You know, he's a bit behind in CS, which you kind of expect. He's got those 2 kills. He's leaning towards Divine Sundra. He's going to have a pretty strong spike coming up, and the fact he hasn't been punished, you know, that's what we talk about with Ezreals, is that the laning phase is the weakest part. If you can shut them down there, then there's definitely an avenue to take an advantage, but that hasn't really happened. So I think V5 can be happy, and their mid game is really strong, right? The Karma has a ton of value there with the big AoE shielding. The Ezreal's going to be spiking. The Xin Zhao is going to be spiking. I actually feel confident in them able to keep challenging in the mid game as long as they don't play things massively wrong.
They got themselves priority now in mid lane, but they don't have it in bot, so it is a bit of a trade right now. Both top laners have got their TPs just about available. Bin just waiting a couple more seconds for his. And Angel might look to just 100% trade this one off. They're going to go towards this top side. You can see the Realm Warp coming in. I don't think Aliez is really aware or ready for this particular play. They're going to try and lock him down underneath his turret. It's going to be the Ryze who tanks up at that particular start. And they do get themselves that first kill. And the Dragon hasn't been started, so they get that for free.
Yeah, essentially just take that opportunity. Angel doing a nice roam there. They will move towards the Dragon, and I think in this situation with the Herald going mid as well, there's not really much Suning can do to contest this one. But still, you take that free kill on the top side. You manage to put a bit of pressure on Aliez, give Bin some alone time, and he manages to get 3 plates in total in the top lane. So, you know, it depends on the usage. It depends on how much V5 can do before these 40 minutes are up. But I think they could be pretty happy in terms of the fact that they got 2 plates mid, Suning got 3 plates top. I think Suning are perfectly fine with that trade.
Very, very happy, and not having to invest the teleport from Bin, so that's still available. Angel, of course, using his Realm Warp to get up towards their top side versus using his teleport. So a lot of small little things here for Suning. V5 still not going to be unhappy. They do get themselves their first Drake. It is going to be a Mountain Soul again in this game as we wait to see exactly where they want to push. And this is where Suning are starting to get some more advantages, and this is where we assumed we would see issues from the likes of V5, where you're coming up to the 15-minute mark, and this is where trading of objectives, trading of power does end up kind of getting a little bit messy for V5, and they really don't know where they want to go. But right now, their eyes are firmly set on that Rift Herald that's spawning in just under a minute.
Yeah, and the thing is, getting the Rift Herald's great, but it's making sure you don't sacrifice too much to get it. And that's a mistake that teams sometimes make, particularly if you don't have priority in the bot lane. You can see when teams try to make the swap up, the enemy team just pushes the wave in, starts taking plates themselves. Now, plates are going to be gone in like 15 seconds, but that frees up the potential to take an easy tower. V5 are grouped to the top side, looking to clear vision now. I think they might be trying to translate this into a dive top. But again, you know, they're setting up this Herald a fair bit early. This is going to have a lot of downtime. You'll see an Ezreal move up here, so it's very clear V5 want to fight this, but all Suning need to do is just not contest, and they're getting alone time in the bot lane. I mean, Huanfeng is just clearing waves by himself, and if V5 don't start the Herald, don't do anything, they will just get punished from the fact that they're over grouping here.
Yeah, there's still 10 seconds till that objective spawns. You can see V5, they're pushing Suning down into this bot side, but they're not gaining anything from it. And we can see PZX goes in. Huanfeng is now here with his team, but a good kick there from SofM, just try to keep him alive, but can he get away? His flash is good. You can see PZX almost gets him away, but not quite, and SofM will survive. Huanfeng will pick up the enemy jungler who just went a bit too deep, and now you can't even contest for this Rift Herald.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. They stopped very early for the Herald. Ezreal missed a couple of waves in the bot lane, so you see that advantage for Huanfeng, who's now also leveled up on the Ezreal. And then you see V5 like, okay, we want Herald. Herald's taking a long time to spawn because we swapped a bit too early. Let's try and take a fight. And they just overforce an SofM. The thing is, when SofM's at that HP, he's out the fight, you know? They're trying to chase down the kill, instead focus on the fight, and as a result, PZX trades his life, doesn't even take down SofM, and as a result, Suning can get the Herald, and we are starting to see some of the failings of that V5 mid-game.
Yeah, 15 minutes on the dot, and you can already see now soon they're going to be able to take top tier 1. They get themselves the Rift Herald, but let's have a look at this fight because it does look like PZX is trying his very, very best, and they almost get him, but you just gotta, it's a sunken cost fallacy. You just gotta take your loss and walk away.
Yeah, and it's the fact that, you know, I don't know what PZX's game plan is here, because if he kills SofM, you know, he's killing the low HP jungler, but in return, he's trading his life as a full HP jungler. It's not efficient, right? It's not giving you an advantage, and shooting off the back of that would very easily, even if you did kill SofM, be able to force you out with just the strength in numbers because they would have more HP. Would you see them looking for On here now?
Yeah, On is just walking away. Now uses his flash. As Huanfeng forced the flash as well, as Suning maybe walking a little bit too close to not respecting the burst damage that can come out from this V5 roster, and that's 2 critical flashes just before Dragon spawns.
And this is kind of the gameplay that you'd expect from a Karma composition, especially with the Braum as well. It's kind of just like a death ball team. You group up, you try and pick people, you run at them. It's that on repeat. And they're doing an okay job of this so far. As you said, burning those flashes before the dragon, pretty important. But this is, again, V5. They group very early for these objectives and kind of don't really think too much about their side waves. And as a result, they end up losing all the farm. But now the fight is starting to kick off.
That's a 3-man Graviton with the Moonlight Vigil that puts up SofM for a perfect start to this fight. V5 in full retreat. They use so much to try and get it going. The exhaust, though, onto Bin stops him and kills him right underneath the tower. But look at these health bars from V5. They can't defend this. They have to try and back themselves away.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that as much as Ben didn't get the kill there, he did a ton of AoE damage in that situation. The exhaust stopping him from finishing everyone off. And I mean, this is the one advantage because they set up so early for that dragon, is that the dragon still hasn't spawned. So maybe an opportunity for V5 to move back in. But I think you can see from the position of PZX on the map, they might end up just giving this one over. We'll see how that pans out because PZX is moving. The dragon has now spawned. I think with the resets coming in from Suning, actually, V5 might be able to move in, but I'm still concerned. Kepler, no mana in this situation, pretty much. Obviously, going to really hinder the effectiveness of the Ezreal.
Really, really well. But it looks like now Suning recognizing that they need to get the resets in. They do not want to contest it. SofM all the way up in the top side of V5's jungle. So that's going to be second Drake here for V5, going over nice and easy to them. But we know you mentioned the lack of sidewave pressure, or I suppose the word we're looking for is lack of sidewave acknowledgement here from V5, and they are just falling behind passively purely because they're not able to pick up these waves. They are losing turrets, they are losing minions, they are not keeping up in farm. It's 35 or more in CS lead for the mid laners. It is 30 in bot lane. It's really becoming an issue for them.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're grouping too early or over grouping for objectives, you lose out massively. I think that's what we're seeing from V5 is, you know, they're team fighting. I'm not going to sit here and say it's stellar, but they definitely understand how to team fight, right? They understand the early game, but it's this lane assignments, it's just knowing when to group up that's really costing them. Because they're like, okay, if we're there at the dragon, you know, a minute and a half early, then we'll have positioning on it. But it's like, okay, but you're losing out because the enemy team may not be there as soon, but they have better setup. And then if they stall you out, they just get a massive advantage. And this is that previous fight. This is that clutch exhaust coming out from Reheal that stops Aliez from dying, honestly, to the third ult from the Gwen. But again, the health bars are low. The reset timings are kind of a little bit staggered from both sides. And as a result, V5 able to pick up that dragon, but still significantly down in the farm.
Very, very much down in the farm as Suning now just looking to see if they can get that second item collector for the Aphelios. Huanfeng well on his way to becoming that absolute monster. We do see the Archangel's Staff and, of course, the Luden's Tempest for the Ryze. So wave clear is sorted. No one's going to have an issue on Suning with wave clear. And V5, they're running out of time. Their composition, the longer this game goes on, doesn't really stack up to the pure outright damage that will come out from Suning.
And I understand V5, again, like they group up as 5 in mid, but I'm like, what for? You know, there's nothing on the map you're contesting. It's not like they're going mid and then like trying to take a lot of vision. They're just kind of grouping and I guess looking for kills. But this is kind of the problem. It's like, you know, they don't need to be grouping up and just looking for mid priority kills. I feel like if they push through into like, you know, a side of the jungle, like if they push through Baron, I'd kind of understand it more, but just bringing 5 members mid, pushing the mid wave, and then be like, cool, he just doesn't really do anything for them.
Yeah.
I think kind of this is the weakness we're seeing in the macro from V5. So we see Suning, you know, what they do is they sort of have been with some priority, and then they kind of push into the jungle more specifically, and it's like they have a target. They're contesting camps here. They're trying to give space to Angel. So I think the bigger adaptation for V5 would be leaning a bit more into the jungle and the river rather than just kind of sticking mid.
And you're looking at the AD carries now. It's at 45 CS now, out of nowhere. Was 30, has been increased by 50%. That's some good Dr. Mundo numbers right there for Huanfeng. And this is just becoming a slow, methodical way for Suning to scale up, get themselves their items. They almost have the Zhonya's Hourglass 4 bin. They have 2 items fully completed here for Aphelios and Ryze. They are building towards more and more damage as well as survivability. This is just harder and harder for V5 the longer this game goes on. And for V5, they, like you mentioned, they're just walking around in this death ball, but they're not finding anything, so it's just a ball.
Yeah, and I kind of struggle to see how they're going to deal with the Aphelios because, Xenix's a little bit overextended. And, like, the thing is that I'm really scared of is Aphelios is so good when teams want to dive into him, right? He's so good into short-range compositions. V5 outside of Ezreal are pretty short-range. And if they want to deal with the Aphelios, they kind of have to dive onto him, right? There's limited damage there as well because to support Karma. PZX is doing, you know, he's doing a fair amount, as is Aliez, but it's not like an insane amount when you have like the shield bow coming in from Huanfeng, you have the protection from the Thresh. And I think he's just going to shred everyone. He's just going to absolutely massacre them, as is Angel. All Suning have to do is just kite back, keep their carry safe, and they just kind of auto-win fights on the back of that.
You're looking at XP leads as well. Level difference between Angel and Uniboy. Level difference between Huanfeng and Kepler. It's becoming a bit of an issue right now. There's even a level difference in the jungle, as we can see. V5 desperately trying to get something going, but with this Thresh being able to not only work for the Aphelios, but work for the rest of his team, it's just hard.
Yep. It's very difficult to find a window to really push in on. But again, it feels like they're just kind of looking for those picks, looking for those kills. We do now have 40 seconds on that dragon, and then this is where we're going to see a big team fight setup. Resets are starting to come in for the side of Suning. You can see Angel on the top side will deal with that wave, set it pushing for them. V5 are going to group up in response, and timing's a little bit better. It's not like they group too early. Ooh, great ward to stop that lantern, actually.
Fantastic one there. That's forced the flash out there. It's going to be the Moonlight Vigil peppering a little bit of damage onto Uniboys. We can now see the re-engage coming in from Suning. Bin onto the back line, trying to see if he can do much more with this, but he's just too deep, and he hasn't got himself a stopwatch to protect himself. Now Angel is here, and Angel can be the machine gun Ryze, but there's 2 kills onto the Aphelios going down. That's V5 now finally getting some purchase with this death ball and can turn that into soul point.
They find the window, they get the kills, and Suning, honestly, a little bit disrespectful. You didn't need to look for that play. Look at the sideways, right? You had top pushing, you had bot pushing. If you slow play this, it's more farm missed by V5, but instead Bin tries to force the engage, gets blown up, but then in the recurring fight, V5 able to chase you down, and they have so much value in these scenarios. Their mid game, super strong. You can look at the Ezreal items. He's spiking hard here. You have the Karma providing that AoE utility, and on that 2-item spike, this was an ideal fight for V5, and Suning opted into it with no real reason to do so.
Yeah, again, like you said, real disrespectful. Actually, Bin going towards the Gnasher's Tooth rather than the Zhonya's. Not even a stopwatch in his inventory to be able to keep him up and alive. And this is, I still think Suning are on a good path, but now V5 have a win condition. They've got the Mountain Soul that might be coming down. That does just really does a lot of work to stop a lot of what Suning will be putting out in the late game, and this is just a really, really good way of just setting up the fight, forcing the flash out. And now Huanfeng is just a little bit out of this fight, has to play a bit more careful.
Yeah, and you can see here they're kind of feeling confident to push back in. But Bin just goes way too far forward, doesn't have the backup. And then the follow-up is there because the Braum caught Huanfeng, it slows him down. The chase comes in, the true shot barrage connects, and he's just never really given that space to stay alive. Like the fact that Bin is down and isn't able to cause an issue, cause a distraction that V5 have to deal with, means they can just very much focus onto Huanfeng and take him down. And now, Kepler, 4-1 on this Ezreal. Yes, he's down in farm, but the extra gold from these kills is kind of keeping him definitely in this race between AD carries.
It really, really is, and we're coming up to a bit of a critical mass here for Suning. They have to find a fight, or at least an objective to trade for this Mountain Soul that will be spawning in 3.5 minutes. And V5, they know that that's going to be the play here from Suning. They know they're going to try and accelerate it, get the Baron maybe, and look to try and push out the side waves. And this is just smart from them, going in, clearing out the vision, making sure that no one can just sneak it away from them in the light of day.
You're making sure they have the bases covered in that regard. And I think we're kind of seeing that, you know, these are scenarios Suning has to try and be cautious about, because those fights are where they can lose the game, right? When it comes to playing the map, quite obvious they've been better in that. Especially, I mean, now you have the Ryze, who's so good at clearing those waves, really strong on the side lane. The Karma wants to be grouped, and we're seeing this is another example. Look at that top lane wave just being pushed in. No one's there to answer it. V5 grouping up as 5 mid, and it's like, again, what are they playing for? They're playing for vision. Sure, that's great, but you're missing out on farm. They might end up starting a desperation Baron here just to force the number, because at the moment Bin is pushing that wave in bot. They've missed out farm top. They kind of need a fight for things to go in their favor.
They need to take away this objective right now, as Baron is down to about 7,000 HP. The bot lane tier 2 will fall. That is the Gwen still pushing. This is a 4v4. Now the teleport is coming in. Baron, 3,000 health. V5 decide to bounce off it and look for the fight. They are going to use the Crescent Strike to try and disengage away from everybody, but Suning in full retreat right now. That's going to be a good gravitum off of the Moonlight Vigil to lock down 4 members of V5. And you lost tier 2 and you're going to go back towards this Baron. It feels like Suning are going to be able to come back and to contest you again.
Yeah, they want the fight. They want to keep pushing the number. Low health bars now for Bin, but he is just going to be able to heal up a little bit. You can see that once more trying to start this off, but you can see they're not really committing. It's a very slow Baron right now. On, I think he's just dead.
I think On is dead. He has no flash to get himself out of here, and that is going to be the support taking. A hopeful hook from Aliez as he gets himself back onto this Baron as a Viego, but now what do you do here for Suning? They're just kind of rinse and repeating right now, but you're losing all your ultimates, you're losing your flashes, you're not really gaining more from just going back to this.
They just can't leave it, though. They have to keep contesting in these situations. Oh, Engage comes in.
There we go. Flash in onto Huanfeng. He is the target. He is dead. V5 find the fight by forcing the Baron, but now Bin, with no exhaust onto him, can rip through these health bars. He's trying his very, very best, and it's going to be Xin Zhao with 2 kills now. 2v5. These health bars are low, but I do not think they are low enough. They're going to be able to use the Realm Warp to get everybody out, and that's going to be enough for V5 to turn back on the Baron for a 3rd time.
But I think Suning might end up going over to contest once more. TP available for Angel again. The health bars are getting lower and lower for V5. They do have that Karma shielding and healing from the Moonstone to keep them somewhat healthy. But it is once more just a repeat of this. And V5, they know what they want. They want to fight, and they keep forcing this Baron again and again and again.
They keep going for it. There's a hook, though, and that's going to be PZX taking a lot of poke damage. And as soon as he spawns, On goes back down. He is no longer on. He is off. Braum now. But speaking of On, it's going to be Gwen. Not quite able to get it all done. Almost finding the kills they needed. And eventually, at the 4th time of trying, V5 take the Baron.
And I mean, it worked. It was the right play, because we said they were failing on these side lane setups. They were losing gold just passively in this game, and it was very clear they didn't really have an answer to the Ryze or the Gwen at this point. So they just group again and again and again and again and again. And they keep grouping until it works. They keep forcing, finding picks on a Suning, and they just repeat it until eventually they're able to get that Baron. Now, Suning make a good call and quickly reacting and picking up that Dragon when they have the opportunity. But this was just like the never-ending Baron setup, and it meant, you know, if you're forcing this Baron, Suning can't do anything in the side lanes. And it meant that they were forced to consistently contest you in these scenarios. And you can see there's moments like this where people start to get low. The damage starts to look like it's coming in. But the shielding is there from the Karma, and it keeps everyone alive in these fringe scenarios. The health bars get low, but it's just never quite enough for Suning to take out a member. And V5 finding some momentum in this game. They have the Baron buff. They're looking like this could be one they could take all the way.
Honestly, it really does. You're looking at the Ezreal right now. 4 items compared to the 2.5. Nearly an Infinity Edge here for the Aphelios. And this was just smart from the side of V5, recognizing that we need to fight now. If we wait for another item or 2 to come onto these carries from Suning, they are going to be unkillable. They are going to be at a point where we just cannot deal with them, shields or no shields. And this is just a really, really good game coming in here from V5. Very much putting themselves into a good position. But the side lanes are such an unbelievable crutch for them right now. They are just not dealing with them, and they gain a tier 2, but they've already got their base cracked open.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is that ideally what you want to do is you want to push one lane like a side lane, and then you want to rotate to the other side of the map, and that buys you time. The problem is, because they're not pushing that side lane, Angel can just walk up, push it himself. You know, he doesn't have very far to go with it, and he's very quickly able to use that to translate it into an objective. We're seeing a similar thing here, right? So now V5 swapped to this side of the map. They bought a little bit of time, but they actually didn't deep push this top lane that much, and Bin is taking this opportunity to push in. So now, you know, they have a very limited window in which they can apply pressure on the bot side of the map. Already, Aliez is having to reset to try and deal with this Gwen on the other side.
And they're just losing time and pressure with this Baron. Yes, they gained a turret in the mid lane, but honestly, right now, like with SofM and Bin both on this top side, you have to be careful if you're, you know, Aliez. You cannot move forward as aggressively without the support of your team, and this is going to be Suning kind of poking and prodding just a little bit. It is going to be another tier 1 turret in bot side going down, so it's still 1,000 gold lead for V5, but with just under 3 minutes till that Dragon Soul spawns again, V5, they're going to struggle to really do much more with this Baron buff.
Yeah, you would have hoped to get a lot more on the back of this. Now, they have found an opportunity to group up here, and this is their final window where there isn't really any punish coming in for the side lanes. So they're looking for that mid lane inhibitor and should be able to find it here.
Yeah, just slow rotation here from Suning means their base is cracked open. We do see now maybe a potential 5v5 as the inhibitor has been taken down. They jump in, but I don't think that was the correct call from Suning. They are going to use the Zhonya's as a little bit of a bait. They do have the Crescent Strike there to try and just mitigate a lot of this poke damage, but look at Angel on this Ryze, just prodding them, hurting them back in a way. He knows that if he lands one good combination as they're all clumped together, he will melt the health bars.
And we're kind of at the point where we're moving past where V5's composition spikes really hard. That mid game was where they were really on fire, and it's not like they fall off a cliff right now. There's definitely a lot of strength still, but you can see the Ryze with that Void Staff starting to pump a ton of damage in. Aphelios from the 3 items. Bin has, you know, 4 items at this point, was able to pick up that Zhonya's and a Void Staff on top of it. So there's so much damage coming out. Finally, the follow-through is kind of there to deal with the Karma Shields and punch through them. It's still not a point where I'm like, okay, V5 just fall over, but very much a scenario for Suning where they can feel a bit more confident if they approach these fights correctly and manage to avoid that just death ball engage from V5 with Karma Shields.
4 items onto the Gwen. Still hasn't upgraded her boots just yet. Still waiting to see what they want to turn those into. But 4 items on Gwen, 4 items or nearly 3.5 onto Ryze, 3.5 onto the Aphelios. You are getting to a point of there's just too much damage for you to deal with. There's only 1 exhaust, and you're going to have to prioritize that onto whoever is trying to kill off Kepler. Kepler has to be kept alive. Kepler is your damage, and Kepler is who is going to win this game for you if you're V5. And for Suning, you're just looking to do what you've done all game. Keep those side lanes pushed, keep the pressure on, and keep V5 separated.
Yep, keep them responding to this. And I mean, it's one of those situations as well where they just kind of go, okay, the wave's there, I guess it's gone. And then SofM goes to the other side, pushes this wave in, and it feels like there's constantly minions being missed, waves being missed, or things to respond to, because V5 are just so set on grouping in any of these scenarios. And you do see in this scenario, Aliez with the TP means he can hold his top lane against the Ryze. But V5 still just focused on getting that setup, getting in on the pit. SofM's on a potential flank now. I want to see Angel moving over because the Realm Warp does have a lot longer range at level 16, but you need to be a little bit closer than this. Dragon's going to get started up, and they need to make their way in quickly.
He did do his job. He pushed it in, used the Realm Warp, and is now a part of this fight. TP going to be committed here. So this is going to be a 5v5 for Dragon Soul. Can they get the steal here on Suning? They will not. Dragon Soul taken now by the side of V5, and they can look for the fight. They've used the Fisher to try and see if they can knock anybody up on their full retreat. Bin gets himself caught up a little bit by the concussive blows. No flash for him just yet, but you gotta be careful of the Aphelios and Ryze just pumping damage on the side. Now V5 back themselves away. They know they cannot take the fight. Suning still very, very healthy.
Yeah, and that's the scary thing. They're trying to engage on a Bin, but you saw how much damage he was able to do, how much follow-up there is from the Aphelios on the Ryze. When you're clumped up like that, it's starting to get really scary. The Mountain Soul helps, don't get me wrong. A lot of resistances, the extra shielding as well. But with the amount of damage coming out from Suning, it's kind of just like a rounding error, that extra shielding. Angel is doing so much, and the armor penetration is coming in with the Last Whisper from the Aphelios. We've got the Void Staff coming out from the solo laners of Suning, and at this point they're feeling a lot more confident. They've hit their scaling points, and V5, they need to shut down these critical carries. They need Huanfeng to go down. They need Angel to go down.
Yeah, look at this as well. You see Bin picking up the stopwatch on top of his Zhonya's hourglass. So he's looking for the double delay as they come into what could potentially be a final fight around this Baron pit. V5, though, they're playing it smart. They have the permanent buff. They don't need to throw this one away just yet. They are going to try and just catch someone out from Suning, who's wandering a little bit too close to the side of the Baron. And with this mid lane turret or mid lane inhibitor down, you can see they're just waiting for cooldowns as PZX does jump in. They're going to try and get him away. They do. There's the kick away, but the Glacier Fisher to try and keep this one going for them. The Winter's Bite does land. PZX, though, taking so much damage from this Aphelios, needs to be so careful. And again, we're waiting to see how V5 can transition this towards a Baron pit, because Suning, they're feeling strong and they're going to continue to keep pushing in. There's a good hook, though, that lands onto PZX. He's going to be taken down just before this Baron, and now you can see V5 have to run away. They cannot take this. They are now at a disadvantage for V5.
And Suning can kind of just brute force at this point. Just they're so strong in these fights. The damage is there. Bin doesn't feel scared anymore. He has the Zhonyas. He has the bulkiness that comes to the Gwen in the late stages. Now they found 3 members.
Oh, SofM keeps himself alive just barely. They stop the recalls, and it's a little bit of a discoordinated setup here for V5. Braum ended up going back while the rest of his team was still there, but Suning recognized they cannot let this Baron go. They do not want the side of V5 to have this. Kepler is here, and oh no, he got behind him. He has to flash away, but they'll take the Braum as a consolation prize. Huanfeng picks that one up. A nice stopwatch here from SofM means that he will not go down. They do hit the cleanse and the flash out of Kepler. He can just about keep himself alive and keep himself pumping out DPS, but now Suning are in full control of where the map is.
You kind of seen that mirrored scenario, though, where we saw V5 ignoring the sideways, focused on grouping fan these fights. It's kind of actually been the case for Suning here, ignoring that top wave that got pushed in has actually damaged the tier 2. They know they're strong now. They know they can group to fight. They know that they are the ones with the advantage. And for V5, that's where the concern is now. You know, you've lost that earlier pressure you had from the composition. Ezreal's already been full build for a little bit now. He's not getting any stronger, and it's just Suning playing catch-up. We can see from this one, Bin feels so confident to go in on this situation. They try and focus him, but the W comes down, the Zhonya's buys a lot of time, and the damage just starts getting pumped out. The Xin Zhao is nowhere near as invincible as it felt like he was earlier in this game.
Really doesn't feel it, and you can see that stopwatch was used and immediately sold because you already have a Zhonya's, so won't have the double stopwatch available for Bin in the next fight. But when is the next fight? That is the big question. The gold doesn't really make a big difference right now, but you've got 5 items now onto your Aphelios with a stopwatch. Nearly a death cap for your mid laner on Angel. And yes, you do have a lot of damage here with this Karma, but it is very much based around the players and the carries around you. You're not the one that's going to be putting that one out for your team. And now, where do you want to go as V5? You still have the priority in this mid lane. You still are able to push this one in, and if someone walks a little bit too far, you can catch them out.
Yeah, I think the main thing is if they can try and find an angle to shut down Angel with Huanfeng, it's very difficult in this game. Just the peel, the protection that comes out makes it a hard task, but if they can, that is the win, Kong. The Aphelios and the Ryze are doing so much damage at this point. Obviously, the Gwen is too, but she can kind of be dealt with if those two are taken down. It's very much this sort of group death ball from V5, and then Suning are just trying to kite back, play the front to back, keep their backline safe and pumping out damage. And V5, they're going to try and move towards Baron, maybe bait Suning over to contest this one. Kepler's just going to pick up that blue buff. And if they can find a good angle here, it could potentially it. They are just going to start that Baron up. Realm Warp going to scout them out. And again, watch those critical carries on Suning and what they can do, or if V5 can shut them down.
Here, critical to note, just before this fight goes on, Huanfeng has both his summoners. Kepler is just missing his cleanse and his flash right now. He should have his cleanse up very soon. Baron, 6,000 HP, but V5 don't want the Baron. They want the fight. They're going to jump straight in on top of the Ryze, and the Ryze is dead. Huanfeng, though, trying to pump out the DPS as he goes forward. There's going to be Bin going golden to keep himself alive. He gets exhausted and taken down. It is a 3 for nothing right now, but this Aphelios is still huge, but the concussive blows gives him a concussion and gets him out. V5 do enough in the fight, and V5 are going to barrel up mid and try and take us to a game 3.
This is going to be it. There's too long in the death time. It's only on to defend, and he's just not enough. The death balling from V5 work. Definitely some mismanagement, but they managed to find it, and it's just this endless forcing group up, use the Karma, run them down, and they managed to find Angel in the critical fight to close out this game.
V5 are not dead yet in this series. They will equal it up after a blunder in game 1 to a fantastic early to mid game in game 2, and will take us in 40 minutes to a game 3.
And honestly, it works for them. You know, it's a simple strategy just to sort of group up fours. And there's definitely some shortcomings to it, right? We saw that with the wave management, the side waves. We saw the fact they've fallen behind in gold passively, but then it got to the point where they felt confident to force on that Baron again and again and again and again. And eventually they found that. And then when it came to those team fights, even when the carries started to scale up and be a threat, even when we're concerned about Angel and Huanfeng, they found that engage onto him. They speed themselves up. They run straight at the Ryze. The Lantern can't save everyone. And also critically, in that messy disruption in the CC, throwing wards down on top of the Lantern, it's actually very hard to use it effectively, and as a result they take down the Ryze and the fight is just over from there. Credit to V5 for finding this one and bouncing back from a questionable game 1, we'll say.
Like I said, it was a best of 1 that led itself to another best of 1 as we can come into this one, but a great from V5. And again, this is my concern for Suning. We look at this team as a team that should be pushing this aside. We talked about it before we came into the series. They are so heavily favored in this matchup, and they just weren't able to get it. They had the late game scaling, but they just couldn't find the fights they were getting engaged upon. They were the ones who were getting caught out, and they just weren't really respecting everything that V5 could bring out. And honestly, it's great for V5.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fights that went well for Suning were the ones where Bin was like in the front, able to soak that attention and damage, and the backline was safe. But it just felt like they couldn't find the angles to keep those carries protected, and the speed from the comm was such a critical aspect in that one. So credit to them. I think even just taking a single game for V5 is a victory by all means. You know, they've gone from 2 to 3 on the back of the series alone, and with that first one being the smiteless one, it kind of is one where you can't really take too much stock in it. This was a strong game for V5. And kind of see the direction. You can see that mid game was obviously not great, right? Suning gained a pretty substantial advantage off the back of that. And it wasn't really like Suning was like crushing fights or anything. It really was just some mismanagement. But when it came to forcing those fights around the Baron, we saw V5 able to answer back. And I mean, you look at the damage done. Kepler just doing so much on this Ezreal.
He really, really was. And it felt like, because V5 were so active, because they were the ones pushing and prodding and looking for those engages, the setup to try and catch someone out, to try and catch Kepler out, just wasn't really there. And we'll see now if Suning can bounce back and take this series, or if V5 will find their first series win of the split. We're going to send it to a quick break, and when we return, pick a ban for game 3 will be happening very shortly.